Here's a bold prediction for you. The next presidential election will be won by either a Republican or a Democrat. Then after the next congressional elections, Congress will be controlled either by the Republicans or the Democrats. And almost every state governor's office will be controlled either by the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, how do I know these things? Well, of course, it's because I'm a clever political scientist, but it's also because they reveal a fundamental aspect of American political life. That is, we are fundamentally a country that is guided by two dominant political parties. Now, you should ask yourself, why do we have a two-party system? And why are these two parties the Republicans and Democrats? Well, the answer to the first question is we don't literally have a two-party system. We have multiple parties here. As I was looking at the results from the 1996 presidential election, I found some pretty interesting things. Let me give you a couple examples. The Republicans and Democrats won about 90% of the popular vote for president. But still, the Reform Party received almost 8 million votes. The Green Party received almost over 500,000 votes. The Libertarians received 450,000 votes. The U.S. Taxpayer Party, 175,000. And the Natural Law Party was able to obtain the votes of over 100,000 American citizens. So we have multiple parties participating in politics. And sometimes these other parties can win. Jesse Ventura is the governor of Minnesota now. He's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat. He ran on his own ticket and he won. So it can happen. Still, almost always, almost all elections are won by either a Republican or Democrat. Why? Why? Now, we're not exactly sure of that. There are complicated reasons, but a couple features are probably most important. The first feature is that American political elections are almost always based on winner take all. That is, the person who receives the greatest number of votes, whether it's a majority or whether it's a minority, whether it's just a plurality, will win that office. The most clear example of this is through the Electoral College. Now, you'll recall that the Electoral College is really the thing that elects the president, that the popular vote does not. Each state is given, according to the Constitution, the number of votes for the Electoral College equal to the number of members of Congress and senators that it has. So California has 54 electoral votes. Every state but two, Maine and Nebraska, casts all its electoral votes, every one of its electoral votes, for the candidate who receives the greatest popular vote in the state. Okay, so you have several people running for president in a state like California. The candidate who receives the single highest majority, the single highest number of votes, whether it's only 38% or 40% of the votes, as long as he has the plurality, he will receive all the electoral votes from that state. What this means is that any minor party finds it very, very difficult to compete. Why bother running for office if you cannot receive the greatest number of votes and receive all the electoral votes? And one of the consequences for this is that it really forces the two parties to exist. In 1992, President Clinton received only 43% of the popular vote, but 70% of the electoral vote. So the Electoral College really creates incentives for two main parties to run. Let me show you how this works through an example. If we think of the American public having views that range from the most liberal to the most conservative, we can identify our two main political parties, the Democrats, as being somewhat more liberal, and the Republicans as being a little bit more conservative. They're both rather close to the middle, rather moderate parties. Okay, let's say you are actually very liberal and you would like to vote for a minor party that is more liberal than the Democrats. You can do so, but think of what this means. If you are a liberal voting for this minor party, that's one less vote that the Democrats can get. That makes it one vote more likely that the Republicans can win. Similarly, if you're really more conservative than the Republican Party, you might think about voting for that minor party, for a minor party that's really conservative. If you do so, that's one less vote for the Republicans, and one less vote for the Republicans means it's one more vote likely the Democrats can win. People understand this, and that forces them, not forces them, but encourages them to vote for the party that's likely to win rather than the party that represents their views. Now, as we saw, lots of people do vote for minor parties, but not very many, because most people cast their votes because they don't just want to give their voice, but because they want to win the election.